Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Travel in Black. My name is Mike Perry, and today we're going to be speaking about three very important topics, right? We're going to talk about passports, visas, and airline tickets, and how you can get the most bang for your buck. So starting off with passports. Passports are very important forms of ID because essentially they prove that you're an American citizen. Outside of having a birth certificate or something like that. If you do not own a driver's license, a passport is another great form of ID to have. So for instance, if you want to go to a bar or something like that, and you don't have a license or a state ID, pull out your passport and use it. I've used mine tons of times. But a passport is really important, obviously, in regards to travel because you can't travel outside the United States without one. Actually, up until 2009, you used to be able to go to Canada with just a driver's license. Those days are long gone now, but you even need a passport to cross the border, you know? And actually, funny enough, only about 28% of Americans own passports. I've heard some other estimates that say 40%, but I mean, I think that's kind of out there. Most of the estimates that I've seen have said 28% of Americans own passports. And just because you own a passport, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing any travel. So just to kind of like start off with that, just understand the importance of having a passport. If you have one, fantastic. Keep it, use it, all that stuff. If you don't, I'll give you a few pointers and basically tell you how you can acquire one. And if you have one and you need to be renewed, I can kind of like give you a little rundown of that too. But to start off, if you want to look into getting a passport, renewing a passport, or just general information on passports, I would definitely say visit the website posted below, and you'll be able to get all the information that you need. You have to fill out a special form. People who are getting new passports or getting passports for the first time, you need to fill out a DS11 form. And for people who are getting passports renewed, you need to fill out another form. I think it's DS81 or something like that. And actually, when you get your when you first get a passport, you have to pay a certain fee. So you pay an application fee of $40, and then you have to pay a $25 execution fee. So in total, it's $165. It's a little pricey, but you get to keep it for 10 years. So you're all set. You don't have to worry about it for a while. To renew your passport, you have to pay $110. And actually, if you're renewing your passport, you can actually just send it in by mail, which is really great. You don't have to worry about going to the office in person and having to deal with that, waiting on long lines, etc., etc. Unfortunately, for those who are just getting a passport for the first time, you actually need to go in person to kind of like deal with all this stuff. And there are a few things that you need to bring with you. Again, just check the travel website. It's actually a government website that you can see posted below. And you can just log on to there and it gives you all the information that you need to acquire a passport. Also, there's an option to expedite the shipping of your passport. So let's say you're going to go to Italy or something like that in the next 2 or 3 weeks and you really need your passport back immediately. You can pay a $60 expediting fee, and the government says that they'll basically be able to get your passport back to you within 2 weeks. Now, I know a lot of parts of the government are not very efficient. This part of the government is highly efficient. So even if you order a regular passport and you just do the regular processing and shipping, they say 4 to 6 weeks. 6 weeks being unless they're really backed up. But actually, when I have renewed my passport, it only took about 2.5 weeks to get it back, and I didn't have to pay the extra $60 for expediting my passport and all that stuff, which is pretty awesome. I was actually looking for my old passport. Here it is. This is what you need. As you see, I have the holes punched in them because I had to renew my passport, and that's what they do when they renew yours. But you'll get all these things in them too, obviously, stamps from all over. So that's kind of like the basic information for passports. Now, moving on to visas. So visas are really an interesting kind of, I don't know if I'd call them a game, but they'll have your head spinning. understand that there are 37 plus countries that are a part of this thing called the VWP, which is the Visa Waiver Program. I will give you a short list of countries that you'll see pop up on the screen, but by and large, you know, if you're traveling to these kind of like remote countries or these countries that might not have the best relationship with the United States, you will need to get a visa, and you'll have to pay a certain amount. You know, and each country has their different requirements, so you have to kind of like check with the country. Now, the really good thing about this website that I found recently too, and I'm actually going to start using it more often because I just think it's an incredible site. And also, obviously, as I do with everything, post the link beneath, so you can just, you know, rewind a little bit, check it out, type it in, and do your own research as well. But it's called Travisa.com, so Travisa.com. And it's a really great website because it lets you find out what kind of visa you can get. So if you know, you can get a business visa, a tourist visa, a student visa, etc., etc. It gives you other pertinent information such as like how much each visa costs, because you know, some visas, they might be like one entry visas, it might be 3 entry visas, it might be a visa for in and out entry for 3 months. So it really depends. There are a lot of different variables that you need to look into and find out if it's pertinent to your specific needs. So I would recommend going to that website, but also I can show you, I think this is really cool too. If you have a smartphone, if you have an iPhone or an Android device, you can actually just go to the App Store or the Android Market, I think it's called, and you can actually look for their app, and that will let you kind of like do the search there, so you don't always have to kind of like log onto a computer or go to the web browser. And this is kind of like, I don't know if you guys could see that. Let's see if I could move it around a little bit. But this is kind of what it looks like, right? Sorry for like the really bad lighting and everything. I wish I had a better way of showing you this. But anyway, so like on the left column, it says citizenship or country of origin. So you would, you know, tap United States, and then it says destination, and you can literally scroll through hundreds of countries to find, you know, the place, you know, your vacation destination or, you know, wherever you want to go. And then it asks you the type of visa, and you could choose business, tourist, transit, student, crew, work, teacher, or diplomat. Some of them are pretty self-explanatory, some of them I really don't know. Like crew, I don't know what that means, or transit visa, I don't really know what that means. And maybe somebody else knows, and you could post it below and explain to me, because I don't know. And then you could basically tap on view requirements at the bottom of the screen, and then it'll give you all these like passport requirement, it'll give you the application form that you need, the visa application form, and other really important information that you're going to need in case you need to get a visa. Now, going back to what I was saying earlier about the VWPs, is those countries that are part of this visa waiver program, you do not need a visa. So you can actually just hop on a plane, go to these countries, they'll stamp your passport, you go in, you're good. So you don't need to worry about those VWPs. I'll also post a website that has a more comprehensive list below, so you'll see the web address. So that's basically it in terms of visas. Now, in terms of airline tickets, this is a really tricky subject, and I'm going to try to be as articulate as possible and explain it as concisely as possible. I don't really know if it's possible, but we'll try. So with airline tickets, there are many different ways of trying to get a cheap fare. You know, obviously there's only so much you can do, but sometimes you just need to bite the bullet and just say, hey, my ticket is whatever, $1,500, and there's really no way for me to get around it. But there are a few tricks that I've learned over the years that you can do to try to, like, you know, bring the cost down. So it's important to know that obviously a lot of times when people go on vacations, they try to go on vacation when there's a holiday, which is, I mean, sometimes it's unavoidable, right? The thing is, if you travel on the holiday, like literally on the day of the holiday, you typically will find pretty inexpensive tickets, at least considerably cheaper than what you would pay if you were flying the day before, because basically airlines know that, hey, they're trying to see family, or they're trying to see friends, or they want to get to this vacation destination. So we're going to bump up the prices, so they end up paying a premium, and but if you fly on the day, the airlines basically expect that a lot of people aren't going to do that. So costs are reduced, and basically you get a deal. Just to give you a little example, when I was going to school in California and I would fly back home to New York for Thanksgiving, I rarely, if ever, flew the day before Thanksgiving, because the price difference sometimes would be like $300. So instead of paying like $650 to get a round trip ticket from San Francisco to New York and back, I can get another ticket on Thanksgiving for $350 from San Francisco to New York and back. So it was a huge price difference. So if you're willing to make some sacrifices, I would highly recommend doing that, trying to travel on a holiday. Also, other important days to remember: Tuesdays and or Wednesdays and Saturdays. Those are 3 really good days to either look for cheaper tickets and to fly on those dates as well. I can't tell you how many times I've found tickets that were greatly reduced on particularly Tuesdays and Saturdays. And flying on Tuesdays and Saturdays is really good too, because on Tuesday you basically beat a lot of like business travelers and a lot of people who are trying to get back to or get to their destination for the whole week. So the cost is a bit lower, and you don't have so many people flying on planes as well. Saturday too is a really great date to fly in and out, because airlines figure you're flying smack dab in the middle of the weekend. You're not really going to be able to get too much done. A lot of people don't want to fly on a weekend. They want to fly to get to a place before the weekend so they could party or whatever, or get to their family and stuff like that. So that's also really important. Something else, if this is not too much of a chore for you people, for me, I don't mind. I love flying. I love being in the air. I love being on an airplane. So for me, I really enjoy it. If you can find a transfer flight, I know some of you are probably cringing like, oh, I don't want to do a transfer flight. But if you can find a transfer flight, sometimes they're greatly discounted. Like for instance, flying from New York to San Francisco sometimes could be like $500. But if you get a transfer flight, and actually I should also mention a transfer flight, but in addition to a transfer flight, also trying to find a surrounding airport. So instead of flying into San Francisco, I fly to San Jose. And then when I fly to San Jose, I have a layover in Houston or Denver, it depends. And yeah, the flight is a little bit longer, but there are definitely certain perks and benefits to doing that. Obviously, the price, like I said, that's key. But also, if you're a frequent flyer, you get the added bonus of extra miles. And I'm going to actually get into loyalty programs in a subsequent episode, because there's a lot of stuff to talk about with that, and I think that can be very beneficial to a lot of people. But like I said, that's another episode, but look for that one too, because I definitely want to talk to you all about that. So that's kind of like the main thing, like if you can try to fly out on a holiday, or even after a holiday is good too. Try to do it on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or a Saturday. Look for connecting flights. Look for airports around. Look for surrounding airports. Also, be cognizant of the season that you're flying in. Typically, if you do something like you fly to Europe in the middle of the summer, airfare is going to be super expensive. And obviously it's because it's tourist season. Like everybody is trying to get to Europe. Well, I don't want to say everybody, but a lot of people are trying to get to Europe. And a lot of people, they want to go there during the summer when it's nice, it's warm outside. You can go out, you can go sightsee, etc., 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 etc. But one really important thing to remember, though, is that you can actually see a lot of these cities at really discounted prices if you just change the season that you go in. So instead of going to London in the middle of the summer when tickets are probably going to be about $1,300, $1,400, what I typically do is when I go to London is that I try to go to London like maybe February, March, so around this time of year, but I mean a little bit later, but typically around this time of year, early to mid-winter, and I've gotten tickets for round-trip tickets, and this is including taxes, for $550, right? So as you can see, I mean, I think London is kind of an exception, but still, even other cities that are kind of like, you know, you kind of have to like play with location and season, but once you kind of like get it down to a fine science, basically you could find really great deals. And also be aware of the hemisphere that you're flying to, right? Because obviously the northern hemisphere summer is the complete opposite of the southern hemisphere summer. So if you're flying from the north to the south, if you're flying from the north in the winter to the south, you're flying into their summer. Typically prices will be more expensive, and vice versa. If you're, you know, in Brazil or something like that, and you're flying to the north in your winter, our summer, tickets are going to be more expensive. So you need to really just kind of like be aware of these different factors and just kind of like take all these things into account. I guess that's basically about it when it comes to airline tickets. Oh, actually, I should mention too. Try not to talk too much. I want to keep everybody's attention. But one last thing. And I'll touch, you know, I'll get into it a little bit more in a later episode. Comparison sites. Should you use comparison sites? I think that's a very important question. I think the long answer to that is no. I think the short answer to that is yes. If you don't really intend on traveling that much, I think you can probably get some pretty good deals on comparison sites, such as like Kayak, Expedia, Orbitz, etc. But if you really intend on doing a lot of travel and a lot of flying, I would highly recommend sticking with an airline's native website for a plethora of reasons. And I would also, if that's the case, I would also highly recommend investing in a frequent flyer or a loyalty program as well. But again, that's kind of like a subject for another episode, and I don't want to get too into that because it's going to take up a lot of time. And I want to keep everybody's attention. I want to keep things fresh and new, etc., etc. But I'll be sure to update you about that stuff. So tune in to the next webisode. I'll actually be flying to. Well, I guess that's later. I'm actually going to be giving an interview to my two brothers who are flying to Iceland next week, Troy and Pierre. So I'll be doing a online interview with them, and they're gonna give us some feedback about like what to expect in Iceland, and they'll give us like, you know, some info on the culture, the food, the people, etc., etc. So I think it's gonna be a really cool episode. I'm looking forward to it. I've never been to Iceland before, so it'll be a learning experience for me as well. And then after that, we're going to be speaking about airport etiquette and moving through airports. And I think actually at that time, I'll also talk about like travel apps that you can use on your phone, or like different travel sites that can kind of like help you navigate around, you know, being a traveler. And I might even talk about frequent flyer programs and loyalty programs at that time too. I'll think about it, but you know, you guys will find out. I'll let you guys know ahead of time, obviously. And then after that, I'll be in Canada. I'll be in Quebec City, so I'll be giving you guys kind of like, you know, the rundown of what that's all about. So I'm really excited about that also. And then we have a lot of other great interviews and trips planned for the rest of the year. So please continue to Continue to tune in. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at TravelinBlack. We're coming up with the website. It's still in development, but you can still bookmark the page because it will be up hopefully in the next few weeks. TravelinBlack.com. You could also find us on Tumblr, travelinblack.tumblr.com, and we're also on Instagram. You could find us with the handle TravelinBlack. And I guess that's about it. So it was great kind of, you know, having this little webisode. And I hope to see you all at the next one. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Feel free to email us, travelinblack@gmail.com. You could also hit us up on Facebook. I forgot to mention that. I can't believe I forgot to mention that. But also our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/travelinblack. And I'll be seeing you next time. Take care, everyone. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Hear his voice, smell my sin up on his breath. Nevertheless, it's senseless without all my senses. In his defense, it's me, not him. No nickel cent, but I swear I played a few good men. But now I'm ready for somebody to feel. If love is blind, say that you'll be my brain. They touch my body, but they never feel the heart of me. Come and mold my soul on a spinning wheel, piece me into pie.